Now, Rick, you know, the way that Alan, I think, what he was trying to say there is that we have to pick apart the argument bit by bit by exposing, the ridiculousness of it, the ridiculousness of her Green New Deal. But there are a lot of people that think that we need to just, attack head on the concept of socialism. Where do you stand on this?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that if we don't stand for greatness, if we don't make a case for free enterprise, make a real case for the greatness that we're striving for in this country through individual freedom, and instead just argue about the trillions of dollars of costs associated and the absurdity of shutting down airlines, and oh, by the way, she is going to get rid of ice because we won't have refrigeration. But you have a real concept here. It's an opportunity for us to have a real conversation about the importance of capitalism, how we're the wealthiest, the world is wealthier today than ever before because of capitalism, because of free markets, and the failure to have that conversation and to educate a group of people who've basically been shielded from the truth through an education system that is designed to create little socialist zombies. It would be a tragedy to miss that as we whine about, gee, it costs too much, which is an argument that we have lost over and over and over again, because one side has a vision and the other side's looking at a pocketbook. We have to show our vision, a positive vision for the future. So I disagree with the concept of minimalizing the argument down to a simple little discussion of this is not practical right now. Wouldn't it be nice? You know what? I'm tired of people listening to the song Imagine and saying, wouldn't it be wonderful? No, it isn't wonderful. It is an absolute destruction of the individual. It's a destruction of the very essence of who we are. And it's a destruction of freedom. And that's the argument we need to have, because that's an argument we win every time.
Well, here's the thing. I do agree with exactly what you're saying, where a plan like this is headed. It's absolutely headed towards disaster. I mean, I was trying to think of an analogy for what she's talking about here, because she's using the language of the New Deal, and in particular, moments of American greatness. She talks in this legislation, they harken back to the New Deal and to the mobilization during World War II, that great arsenal of democracy moment where we mobilized on the home front as well as, on the war. Sending our guys overseas, we mobilized to build the planes, the tanks, all of that to, win the war. All of these great efforts. She also harkened back to the moonshot, going to the moon. These great moments that are just key, significant, iconic moments in American greatness. But what her plan here is, this plan that she's proposing has no bearing on that, or has no relation to that. I mean, when we were mobilizing during the New Deal or during World War II, the things that we were building had real benefit, like the Tennessee Valley Authority that brought electricity, or things like the Shasta Dam or the Hoover Dam. These were things that were greatly beneficial to the public. And these are the sorts of things that she has no interest in doing. They're proposing, to basically get rid of our current energy grid and all of the things that we rely on for energy, and instead move towards something that we don't even really have yet, just to put up wind turbines, which it's just completely detached from reality. To me, it's as if they're saying, we can do this wonderful thing, but it's like they're jumping off a cliff together. It's like I said, jumping off a cliff together is not the moonshot. Burning down your house is not the same as adding on a new addition. This is what this ridiculous thing is. They're at war with reality. But my big concern is that to just say, capitalism is wonderful, rah, rah, capitalism, this current generation, these younger people, they don't have that view because they've been struggling to get a job. They are way in debt. They see all sorts of problems with our system. Again, going back to globalization, again, going back to our, horrible trade policies and all that. None of them address that issue in their talking points. And that is what I believe has made socialism look attractive, because these young people don't see Venezuela when they hear that word. They just see something different than what they have now. So I agree with what you're saying, but I also agree that it is important that we offer ideas to counter her kookiness. Because
no, I agree, and I agree in offering ideas. But here's the thing, and the initial premise was right, that was talked about by Alan is right. The environmental movement came out of the George McGovern campaign in 1972. Well, after McGovern got destroyed at the ballot box, all those people who were working in the McGovern campaign formed groups and fed into groups like the Sierra Club and a whole variety of other environmental groups. And that was the outward thrust. They found that they couldn't win a collectivist argument on a straightforward economic argument. So they had to create another moral high ground to do so. The moral high ground they settled on was earth worship, essentially. And so now we have a bunch of people who are, this isn't about economics. Their article of faith is environmentalism, is saving the earth. So what we have to do is to defeat an article of faith. It isn't enough to say, oh, that's not practical, because articles of faith don't require practicality. What you have to do is you have to show that the article of faith itself is false. And that's what the socialism aspect is. It is a false God. And if we don't strike that false God down now, while it's most vulnerable, we will find it very difficult to defeat it later on.
I agree with that 1,000%. And it is, in fact, later on in the show, I'm going to talk some more about that particular issue. I like to on Fridays to give our little history lesson to folks. I'm going to give an example, something from history that I think will explain that exact point about how these environmentalists have a religious fervor about them. Not dissimilar to the sort of French revolutionary spirit. And all of these revolutionaries, all of these utopian thinkers, they always carry banners that say things like, brotherhood and friendship and all of this stuff, or liberté, égalité, fraternité, and all of that stuff. Always dress it up in nice things, and then it always leads to the guillotine. It always leads to the gulag. These utopian visions. When I read this Green New Deal, where she's saying things like, we will build all these wind turbines, and they're going to need it to build, cover the country in wind turbines to get the kind of energy that they need. If they take away all of our, coal plants, all of our fossil fuels. When I read that, I think, well, what are you going to do when people say, no, I don't want a wind turbine? What are you going to do when farmers say, I don't want you taking my cattle? What are you going to do when people say, I don't want you taking my car? What re-education camp are you going to send them to? All of these utopian dreams, what happens when people aren't on board with that and they have their own mind? They don't want to be collectivized. What happens then? That's the